So this is Louis, and I thought for today I would speak to something that came up when I was researching a conservative pundit who I've despised or loathed for an incredibly long time, and now that the Tylenol has kicked in from my hangover from yesterday, I can actually speak to something that came up when I was thinking about what I used to believe, why, and what about the right used to irritate me, why I was a leftist, because I was looking at old videos from the right, old videos from the left. I was watching old Young Turks videos and old videos by like people on Fox News, including Tucker Carlson. I used to not like Tucker Carlson. I used to thought he was an inauthentic, bullshitting conservative. Like when it was the heyday of the neocons, like late 2000s, when the conservatives have had almost a decade-long run of their policies in place, their punditry, owning the network news, I despised conservatism because that's all I thought it was. I thought it was evangelicals wearing a sign that said the end is nigh and spouting Bible quotes. And by the way, that side of conservatism still exists. There still exists a side of conservatism which is completely nonsensical in that I've read the Bible cover to cover at least twice. When you stand up and you start citing the Bible with random quotes, even as someone who's read the Bible all the way through twice, it makes no sense to me. It is not an argument for fucking anything. I'll help you out here. Make an argument, then give me a Bible quote. Make an actual argument. Build the case for what you believe, then give me a Bible quote for the Christian mores that undergirds your position. I can't stand evangelical fucking conservatives because they make no sense. They never have. Even when I was a Christian, you can debate Catholicism. You made no sense then, you make no sense today. They make no sense. Make an argument, then give me a Bible quote. But unfortunately, even recently I've seen an example of this. Evangelical Christian goes to a drag queen story hour event, disrupts the event. I'm not just against the pedophile drag queen shit, I'm against drag in general. You don't have to sway me at all. I'm already on your side. Christian stands up, just starts spouting fucking nonsense. Incoherent nonsense about the Bible. I can't understand you, and I've read the Bible. I used to be a Christian. I went to Sunday school. I've read the Bible. I understand it. I can't understand you, and when that's the case, you are irrational and you are nonsensical. You sway no one. Absolutely no one. And when that's you, when that's conservatism, it opens the door to mercenaries that can actually make an argument. They can be as insincere and inauthentic as they can possibly get away with and still label themselves a conservative, so long as they make more sense than you. And so my warning to conservatives is do not allow the face of your movement to be evangelicals, because they are irrational and they do not actually have arguments outside of random, just ranting about the Bible that is nonsensical, that literally is incoherent. Do not allow them to be the face of your movement, because they are fucking losers. They cannot win you elections. They cannot win arguments. They are just deranged fanatics. And even if Christianity, the morality of Christianity is what undergirds 100% of right-wing politics, right-wing arguments, and the rest of it, it's the bedrock of the morals of conservatism. Even if that is the case, you have to build the argument to win over those that are not on your side currently. They could be more atheistic, they could be more Christian. It's a matter of winning over those that are not currently on your side. Preaching to the choir can be as incoherent as you want it to be. You have to do more to win those over to your side. That can only be done when you make the case better than your opposition. Most people, in my view, can be swayed. I don't think that most people are irrational or just ridiculously partisan. That has not been my experience in life. There are a certain percentage of people that are just moronic partisans, but in large part, a lot of people are not that way. And so I think that for the most part, all you have to do is make a more coherent argument. Make yourself the reasonable speaker. Make your case the most coherent one, the most logical one for anyone to take. If you're rational, of course you would be on this side. Make that, what you are. Be that speaker, and you will win over the majority of the people. In whatever, you're in a room, you're making the case for your local election, or you're making a national case for the movement. It doesn't matter so long as you are the one making the best argument. And even if you're against that, you think, oh no, let's spout Bible quotes, it can't hurt you to be the rational actor as well. It can't hurt you. Because I think that one of the reasons why, people such as myself and many others have been ejected from the left and have joined the right. I may not be a philosophical conservative, but I am on the side of philosophical conservatives, because I find social conservatives, even if they can be boorish in certain ways and we disagree on certain issues for differing reasons, even though I'm not perfectly aligned with them, I'm still parallel with them because I find the left to be completely irrational and irredeemable. That is why I am now on your side. And what is going to keep me on your side is so long as you are the side that makes sense. So long as you are the reasonable people in the room that I think genuinely care about others, that aren't just fanatics and morons. I think the failures of evangelical conservatives led to the revolution of the mercenary right, the internationalist right. People will often say neocons and that sort of thing in comparison to nationalists or paleocons. I think it can be labeled down to the internationalist right, because that is what I think undergirds what they believe. I think it is the idea that capitalism and a mercenary attitude is what is the best aspect of Western culture or Western morality. And I think that it is not true. It is fundamentally false. I think that internationalism is an erroneous position. It is wrong factually. It leads to worse results than, say, social conservatism, even if I may have problems with it. I think that social conservatives have a better argument for outcomes than anyone from the internationalist right, any case they could possibly make. Empty consumerism, internationalism, and mercenary right-wing politics have led to an utterly dysfunctional country that has bred and has radicalized the left to such a point that they are now running the show culturally, institutionally, and they are running roughshod over the right. And rather than continue to make the case for conservative politics, conservative philosophy, mercenary internationalist right-wingers are abandoning their positions to just be politically correct. And what is politically correct is whatever the left is spouting at the moment. The failure of the evangelicals has been giving conservatism over to the internationalist mercenary right. And the mercenary right are losers. They are abandoning right-wing philosophy, conservative philosophy, and just succumbing to the progressive revolution. As someone that views the left as irredeemable, irrational, and pushing the entire West, every nation in it, to the brink of being failed states, of being just failed societies, that is the trajectory we're on because of them. As someone that believes that the left is in that position, that is the source of what is driving the dysfunction in our nations, we should not be giving ground to them in every instance, and that is what the mercenary right is doing. At every given point, the mercenary right simply abandons their socially conservative beliefs and their socially conservative morality for the sake of remaining politically correct. They do that each and every time. And what I'm saying is that in order to push them out, in order to retain socially conservative positions and to make the case for traditionalism or whatever else, philosophical conservatism, you can't simply be irrational Christian fanatics. You can't simply make irrational, incoherent arguments about the Bible as being the source of authority for why you're right. You can have that as the mores that undergird your position, but you actually have to make the position. And I'm saying this as someone who is formally on the left. This is what swayed me to being on the left. It is you being irrational, you making incoherent arguments that no one can understand. No one. There's no way that, even to you, that argument makes any fucking sense. You have to be the adults in the room. And that exists on the right. You can go back all the way to the 50s, the 40s, find arguments by intellectual conservatives who don't even mention the Bible that can make the case for social conservatism, for philosophical conservatism, and so on. They can make the case for conservative policy based on a coherent, rational, and convincing argument. They can do it, so can you. Those people should be the face of the movement. And if it's not them, if you're not going to make the more intellectual side of conservatism the face of your movement, it should be the nationalist. Because in my view, the resurgence of the nationalist right is in reaction to the failures of the internationalist right. That is why you see nationalism exploding at the moment. Why even people that are more socially liberal or align more with the left, such as, let's say, Tim Pool or others that are closer to the left and not so much really on the right, they still side with conservatives. They're still aligning with conservatives and conversing and speaking with and being on stage with, people on the right. It's because the right are doing better under the position of arguing for nationalism than they are either spouting Bible quotes or being mercenaries that think that capitalism is a fucking worldview. I think that the healthiest thing that has happened to conservatism in my lifetime probably is the resurgence of nationalism, because I think that is a more coherent and cogent standpoint than anything that we currently see on the left, which has gone all out in embracing, in essence, the downfall of nations, when that is basically the general position of the left at this point, where that is mainstream. Whether it's, arguing in favor of healthcare, publicly subsidized healthcare for illegals, for foreign nationals, or the dismantlement of border control and immigration enforcement, the argument in favor of prosecutors showing discretion towards property crimes based on race and so on, the total dismantlement of law enforcement in favor of racial redistribution and so on. That irrationality is what is making the case for why the left should lose and why the right should make a comeback. And I think the adults in the room are the nationalists that are making the case for why the left is fundamentally wrong and is the source of so much of the dysfunction that we see. Even as ugly as some aspects are, racially charged aspects are, to nationalism, and there are more isolationist aspects and racially motivated aspects to nationalism that exist, as much of an issue as that element is, I think that so long as conservatives can remain grounded in simple utilitarian attitudes of what happens to a nation if you let the left loose and they get what they want, what can happen. So long as that's a position you're arguing from, I think that they can easily win, easily sway the voters, and easily win elections to see that these people are ultimately defeated and never get their way on anything. But to lay out another aspect to this before I go, I will say that I think one of the things that I've come to understand is the timeline that we're in currently. I think that, and I haven't really dubbed everything just yet, but I'll show you in an image what I think the timeline to be. We'll start at the clown world decade, 2020 onwards. That's my prediction. The next 10 years are going to be wild. It's going to be ridiculous. The left is going to become even worse, more insane, and you're going to see a certain element of the right, hopefully, be uncoupled or decoupled whatever it is, from the general conservative movement. The important aspect and the positive aspect to the Groyper War, when it comes to Charlie Kirk and others, even though I think it's not exactly going the way they want right now, the importance of that argument was to call out the mercenary right and to show everyone who they are, that they are insincere. They're just saying whatever in order to get you to stop attacking them. They are trying to go under the cover of more nationalistic beliefs for the sake of hiding from scrutiny. They're afraid of being exposed for what they believe, and that is basically ANCAP politics. It's basically open the border, get rid of all the welfare programs, because capitalism is God. That is, in essence, their view. They don't care about the country. They don't really care about the average American. All they believe is empty consumerism is good enough. Buying a new flat screen television is a replacement for God, and the market dictates all. And if the market wants open borders in a failed nation in the United States, and Christianity to fall, for Drag Queen Story Hour to be the face of the movement, and so on, then that is fine. Because that's what the market dictates, and the market is always right. What Mr. Krabs says,
the money is always right.
That is basically their view. And if the money says that, social leftism, progressivism, if the market says progressivism is right, they will become progressives. And I have examples of this that I'm going to cite in the video that I'm working on at the moment. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull the trigger on it just yet because it's going to require a decent amount of research and work. But there are examples of this. Of if the popular sentiment moves against social conservatism, embraces progressivism, and there's money in that, then fuck social conservatism. There's so many mercenaries on the right that do this each and every fucking time. They don't actually have an argument for why they've abandoned their former positions. They just do so, and it's because there's money there, and that is the popular sentiment at the time. And that's it. That is a road to nowhere, and it's why people say conservatives conserve nothing. That is where it's coming from. It's not that, your average nationalist conservative, your average nationalist, your average conservative, and just in general, your average Christian, it's not because they're bad. It's because the people that are claiming to speak for them are mercenaries. They don't care. Capitalism is their God. They can purport to believe in God. They can purport to be a Christian, but the market is, in fact, their God. And like I say, capitalism is not a worldview. It is a mercenary worldview. And if the market says that progressive politics is where the money is, that is what their politics are. It's being devoid of principle. It's just going where the money is. And I'm sorry, but to say this to conservatives, that's not conservatism. If I have to be the one to hold your hand and lead you down the road, to explain to you, lead you to the water, and say, listen, this is not social conservatism. This is not philosophical conservatism. This is just not generally conservatism. Why do you support these people? Why do you back these people? I'm not saying capitalism isn't good or isn't moral or more moral than socialism. I'm simply saying it's not a fucking worldview. It's a monetary system, for crying out loud. It doesn't explain what your morals should be and why. It is simply that there are economies, there are industries, there are interests, there are products people demand. That is not a worldview. It doesn't dictate what morality should be. It never has, it never will. It's nonsensical that you think for a second that the market, there's a market for cocaine, there's a market for drugs, there's a market for pornography, there's a market for sex trafficking and prostitution, there's a market for so many things that are arguably vices and immoral. If the market is always right, why does it make sense to you for any of these things to be illegal, to be banned, to be legally prohibited? Why should they be prohibited if the market exists and always will for those things? Why? Explain it. If the market's always right, if capitalism is always right, there's market that exists that are illegal and should be, such as child prostitution, pornography. That should be illegal and always should, but there's always going to be pedophiles that want it. There will always be a black market for it. Make the case for it being illegal. Mr. Mercenary, Mr. Capitalist. Why? You're always going to default to actual philosophical conservatism. And if that's the case, then capitalism is not a worldview. So stop speaking to the fucking market as though it is, because it isn't. But to get back to the timeline, because I went on a rant there, the timeline is Clown World. That's 2020. That's next year. That's where we're headed. Everything that I see says that that's where we're headed. You disagree, you say I haven't done enough research, fine. That's where I think we're headed. The last decade has been what I'm going to call the progressive revolution. And I'm setting the hard date for when this started in 2010. That's when I think all of this started, 2010. Because if you look at videos that are 9, 10 years old, you can see that we were at the beginning. This is when things were starting to kick off. This is when the Young Turks were galvanizing their popularity, where progressive beliefs were becoming popular. And I think what it had to do was the older millennials rather, going to college, becoming radicalized, exiting college, joining the workforce. That's what I think really kicked this off. What started the progressive revolution decade. It was millennials graduating and entering the workforce. I think there's a case to be made for blaming multiple generations for their individual failures to prevent the current state that we're in. But the fact is that when it comes to what led to the current decade that we're in, I think it was starting in 2010, millennials entering the workforce, becoming radicalized in college, joining the workforce, radicalizing institutions, regardless of what we're talking about, public and private. That's what I think it was the impetus. That's where I think it began, and I think that that's where we, how we found ourselves where we are currently, and what was the preface to the decade we're heading into. I'll leave it to you to tell me what you think about what I've said, and I hope that I have been eloquent enough in my argument to say, to warn those that are on the right away from falling into old habits of just being street preachers. Because I don't think that, you can say that the Christian morality is what is going to ultimately lead to you becoming the victor, but I genuinely don't think that spouting Bible verses is your only argument is what is actually going to sway anyone to your side. Even if the morality is what is at the bedrock of your beliefs and your reasoning, I'm telling you that based on looking at videos of the past, based on thinking about why I used to be on the left, what motivated me, what swayed me to the left, I fear the resurgence of the evangelical right. Because I think, not because, let me tip my fedora, let me throw up a quote by Christopher Hitchens or some shit. I'm telling you that practically, in terms of real politic, they are fucking losers. They are not going to sway anyone to your side. They are not going to win any elections. They are dead fucking weight. And I'm not saying eject them. I am saying stifle them. Just say, okay, listen, you're on our side. We agree with you. We're parallel in our beliefs and in our end state, our end goals. But please, shut the fuck up and let those that can actually make an argument speak. Those that should be decoupled are the mercenaries, the mercenary right, the internationalist right, the so-called neocons, the rhinos and so on, the jargon that people on the right have for these people. I think it can be consolidated, in my view, to the internationalist right. I think that is the hallmark of who these people are. They are the ones that need to be decoupled because They are the losers. They are the ones that have been in charge and have led to where we are now. They're losing power now, and it has been because they have been completely ineffective against the left. They have let the left become radicalized, and they are unable to make the case against them. They regurgitate the same fucking talking points over and over and over, and they are unable, and they're unwilling to just make the case for conservative philosophy. They're unwilling to do it. When pressured, they just concede. They just bend the knee to progressive politics each and every time. You can watch this play out. And it's a loser. It's a loser for the right, and these people should be... I mean, bring me on. You can have whatever issues you have with me. Bring me on. Because at least I'm willing to make an argument with you for what we should do, what policy we should prescribe, what we should actually take action on. I'm not here to fucking stand in your way. I'm not here to make the case for why we should have open borders, speak multiple languages, and so on. I'm not the internationalist right that is hobbling, that is handicapping the right. I'm trying to help. But these people, these mercenaries, they are the ones getting in your fucking way. They are the fucking dead weight to the conservative movement. And in my view, they should be gone. Eject them. Threaten them. Even though they're going to bury themselves, a lot of them, they're going to bury themselves and try to pretend as though that they're not what they are. At least then they shut the fuck up and will, if they're not speaking, they will at least mirror your argumentation. At least then they're doing that. They're trying to make your case for you. Even if, in fact, they are completely insincere and inauthentic in doing so. At least they're doing that. They're not at least speaking against you. That's the best we're going to have to get from these people, from it seems. Because they're as fanatical as the leftists. They just believe that internationalism and capitalism is going to fucking solve every issue when so clearly it is not. So clearly it is not. The market is not the fucking moral guidance of the world. It isn't. There is a market for completely immoral and awful things, evil practices, inarguably and unequivocally, indefensibly evil practices. There is a market for those things. So long as that is the undeniable fact of the matter, of the world, of reality, you cannot say that the market is a moral fucking foundation for anything. It is not. Capitalism is good. Capitalism is far more moral and is moral by itself, but is more moral than socialism. It is a monetary system. It is not a worldview. It is a philosophical foundation of fucking nothing. So I will leave it there. Thank you for listening.
Excuse me, what pardon? I had to just ask him. I am man, the man could just stalk him. Man's like, ooh, I'm back with that margin. And then even back in that garden where the blood clot, I'm back the Dun Gargan. Started off light, I think, and then dark and Hollow Man G and me and I'm talking.